So two of the greatest Rebbes that lived about 180 years ago were Rabbaran of Kalin, who was the author of the Sefer Beis Aaron, the book Beis Aaron on Chumash, one of the big Chassidic Svarim books, and Rabbi Yisrael of Rizhin, the great Rizhiner. Their children were married to each other. The Rizhner's son, the Sadiger, was married to the Kalina's daughter. And the Rabban Kalina would always tell over this story that he heard from his mechutin, from Rabbi Yisrael Rizhiner. And it started as follows. There was an introduction. He always said that inasmuch as a tzaddik, a great righteous leader, can do great things with his prayers to help another Jew, also sometimes the chassid, the follower, the student, can do as much or if not more, with their simple faith and emunah in the tzaddik's strength in heaven. And he would tell over this story. There were two women that lived in the same city. One of them believed in tzaddikim, in the Chassidic tzaddikim, and the other one didn't. The one who did believe in it, in the Chassidic Rebbes, her husband didn't believe. And the one that didn't believe, her husband did believe. So there were two couples, and one, the husband believed in tzaddikim, and the other one, the wife, believed in tzaddikim. Well, it happened to be that one of these women, whose husband owned the local inn, and was having terrible problems from the parts, from the landowner, because though he was a very straight, honest person, but it was the way of many of these landowners who were not so crazy about the Jews. Some liked the Jews, some didn't. Some, if they didn't pay on time or if they were a little late, they would throw them in the dungeon, and many Jews and sometimes the wives and children rotted away in the dungeon, sadly enough. So one of these women whose husband was an innkeeper, the landowner threatened he'll throw him in the dungeon, and all the pleading that it was a very cold winter and I didn't have so many customers didn't help anything. And he was in real problem. His wife was the one who believed in going to the Rebbe's, the strength of the Holy Baal Shem Tov and his ways. The other woman, the one who didn't believe and her husband did believe, her husband was very sick. And he really needed to have some special prayers from a tzaddik, a Chassidic Rebbe. So both women decided to go together to the Heilige Rizhiner, to the Holy Rebbe Yisrael Rizhin, to the Holy Rabban Kalina, to Rebbe Yisrael Rizhiner. And when they came there, somehow the kvitlich, the piece of paper that you give to the tzaddik with your name and your mother's name to pray for you, got switched. So that the woman whose husband had the problem with the landowner, on her kvittel it said, "My husband's very sick." And the one whose husband was sick, it said, "I'm having a problem with the landowner. Please bless me that everything should be okay." So the Rebbe looks at both kvitlich, and to the woman whose husband was so sick, he said, "May Hashem help, you shouldn't have a problem. thinking that that's the landowner. The problem with the landowner. With the one that had the problem with the landowner, the Rebbe said, go back home and do the process of letting blood. There was this process that used to be done. I understand that today it's being used again by some health conscious people, where they let blood, and it's a whole process, and people get healed like that. No questions asked, both women go home. And the woman who's home, whose husband didn't believe much in the Rebbe's, she tells her husband, you have a problem with the landowner, we're going to do the bloodletting problem. And he says, what? What are you talking about? Well, might as well try it, you know. I have no other choice because I'm really in trouble and I don't want to be thrown into the dungeon. And as they start doing the bloodletting process, all of a sudden the messenger from the pirates comes, from the landowner, and he sees this horrible scene. This guy's lying there and blood all over the place. He runs right back to the pirates, to the landowner. He says, I don't know what you want from the Jew, because he looks like he's half on the other world already, and blood all over it. It's a horrible scene. So the landowner says, that can't be. I just saw him the other day. Bring him here with his bed. And they schlep him to the landowner. And before he even gets into the pirates, his wife is standing there and she says, Oi, what happened? And he tells her a story to save his life. He says, well, yesterday didn't have any money, so I went to borrow some money from a fellow businessman. And on the way back, a bunch of robbers stole all my money, and they beat me up, and I'm still not well till now. She takes him into her husband. She says, Yvonne, look at him. Look at him. This is who you want to raise money? Otherwise you throw him into the dungeon? Are you a human being or aren't you a human being? I say, give him 3 years of free rent. And of course, you know who wins, right? So that was his Yeshua. That's how he got help from heaven. And the other one, anyway, he was okay. He got back to his health. And so the Holy Vishnu told his Mechut and told Rabbi and Kalina, believe me, I didn't know that the Kvitlich were switched. But the strength of the simple faith that this woman had is what really made the difference. And that's why she was helped that way, and she was helped the other way. Great story. Have a good night, people.